Hi, welcome back to the channel. Between the writing of and filming of this video, our country has been brought into and then taken out of, or at least paused, a tariff trade war. This video is all about a number of things that you should consider doing or should consider not doing, both long-term and short-term, with the impending tariffs. And as of today, as of the filming of today, which is the 5th of February, the tariffs are paused. So maybe they never come back. But I do believe that predicting what President Trump is going to do is not going to be something that I'm going to attempt to do. So let's just go under the assumption that they will at some point come back. Maybe it's in 30 days, maybe it's later, maybe it never happens. But either way, you should be armed with a couple of ideas of how you can come out financially ahead if those tariffs do in fact come back. So let's get into it. So the biggest message that's going to be throughout this video is really just this is time to stay disciplined. Those that are going to panic are going to get hurt the most. Stay disciplined in your approach is the kind of the big theme of all of this. But long-term thing number one that I would encourage you to have a think about doing, or maybe do in your case, is to sideline some cash. I am by no means recommending that you liquidate your entire portfolio into cash. I think that would be a wild overstep. But if you liquidated 5 to maybe 10% of your portfolio into cash, specifically with the mindset that you are going to aggressively pounce when the time comes. Over the next year, there will be volatility. That's the only thing that I'm guaranteeing that 2025 will see to my clients. I have no idea if returns are going to be good, if they're going to be bad. I'd be shocked if they were boring. I think there's going to be a lot of volatility this year. And if we look back at really volatile periods like 2008 and 2020 with COVID, there was always opportunities to buy quality ETFs or stocks if you're a stock purchaser when those things happen. And even if you see something of quality go down by 10, maybe 15%, and you do pounce on it with your cash and it goes down another 10%, that's still not a bad decision, because eventually, hopefully, historically, statistically, all those things should come back in the long term. So thing number one, sideline a little bit of cash, 5 to 10% at most, but pounce. When you see the opportunity, jump all over it. Thing number two you should do when looking at these tariffs or your financial situation is it's time for you to revisit your asset allocation. I'm a big believer that as long as you're invested in quality ETFs or quality investments, it's the asset allocation that's going to make the biggest difference long term. So it's time to revisit that and what your strategy around rebalancing is. With our portfolio management partners, a portfolio is not rebalanced until it's 5% out of alignment with the goal portfolio. Maybe that's not your approach. Maybe you want it to be more strict than that or less strict, but it's time to revisit your asset allocation to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of equities and fixed income that allow you to A, sleep at night with some safety, and B, gain some returns when those opportunities present themselves. Thing number three to do now, if those tariffs do come back in play, even do this before the tariffs come back into play, if they do, is to revisit your plan or get a financial plan. It's time now that I'm going to be reviewing with clients their financial projections to make sure they're still on track, to look at things like extra volatile markets. We can bring in historical data into my financial planning software to see kind of what it would look like in other times that were similar to this. But it's time to revisit your plan with your planner, or if it's time for you to get your first one, it's a great chance for you to go into the description down below and click the link that comes directly to me, and we can get started on that. Now let's shift gears to the things that I don't recommend that you do. Some of these are real knee-jerk reactions that I'm seeing people ask about or talk about. The first is do not make bets on sectors. There's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of articles out there already talking about this sector is going to get hurt worse than this one. And the reality is we simply don't know where or who is going to get hurt the worst. There's always unexpected or unintended consequences to decisions. So I just don't recommend making sector specific or name specific, like company name specific bets at this time. Again, I feel like every time someone says that sector A is going to get hurt, there's always an argument for the other side. And if I think back to a previous position I was in at another company years ago, we made a bet based on COVID about a specific car part manufacturer and thinking that that company is never going to do as well as it is right now. We sold early into the COVID times in about the $40 to $45 range. Well, the next 12 months, that stock nearly tripled, not quite tripled, about 2.5 times. So the reality is, when you're making specific bets, you're taking a big bet and a big gamble. So I don't recommend making bets on sectors. Thing number 2 that I do not recommend that you do, and this is really hard for me to say as a Canadian right now, is to dump your US exposure. As a Canadian, in the middle of this trade war, I and my wife are shifting to buying more Canadian-made goods. We're reading the labels a little bit more carefully than we were before. We intend to travel exclusively within Canada in the next 4 years if we get a chance to travel at all. But dumping the US exposure, financially speaking, I'm not talking as the human perspective, just the financial perspective, I can't see as a great idea. Odds are, if there is a full-blown tariff war or trade war, the US will be the country that comes out on top. So having your US exposure stock would be a good idea through that time. As much as I'd love to say dump it all and just focus on Canada and believe in Canada, I can't recommend dumping all your US exposure. Trim it, that's fine, but I can't recommend that. Thing number 3 that I recommend that you do not do is to go full in on GICs right now. Volatility can be a scary thing, especially if you're transitioning or early into retirement. It's very, very scary. But GICs are not paying what they were just 2 short years ago. And I can't recommend going into something that's only going to be paying you 2 or 3% over that time. There's no harm in having some GICs. There's no problem with that at all. But this kind of goes back to point 2 on the do side. Revisit your asset allocation. If you're wanting some extra GICs on your fixed income side, go for it, but don't go 100% into GICs in this time. I also promised one short-term thing to do, especially if you are pulling RIF income, and this is what it is. I do recommend that you look at what's called a cash wedge strategy, and I have a link in the description down below of a video I've talked about the cash wedge before. But specifically, if you're before the age of 71, so you haven't had to convert your RSP to RIF yet, you can create a RIF if you're pulling from your RSPs and just put 3 or maybe 6 months worth of income in there. You don't put market risk into that section. So it's reliable cash flow during those 3 to 6 months, whereas the rest of your RSP is still then fully invested and potentially doing well, potentially not, again, based on what we see in this year. And again, this all comes back to the second recommendation that I had on the do side, which is just revisiting your asset allocation. Because again, if you're over 71, you can't do a specific RSP to RIF wedge because all your accounts will be RIFs by that point, but you can maybe look at changing that asset allocation, making it a little bit more conservative if that fits your risk tolerance. Ultimately though, if I could summarize this in one word, it's discipline. 2025, I am willing to bet, will be volatile. It'll be one of the years that we remember forever. It'll go into textbooks forever. Discipline is going to be the key this year. If you don't have good habits, now is the time. If you need to start investing, now is the time. Do not panic. Stay disciplined. That's the big key to this year. If it's time for me to review your financial plan, like I said earlier, there's a link in the description down below that comes directly to me. Till next time, keep planning.